Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Industrial Real Estate Show. I'm pleased to be joined by Grant Pruitt, who's the president and co-founder of Whitebox Real Estate. Before starting his own firm, Grant was actually at a large multinational brokerage, and before that, he was at a boutique brokerage. So he has a wide perspective on the industrial real estate market, ranging from all different sizes of brokerages. We jumped into a number of topics about what people can do to get into the business, how they can be successful, and just some general advice that Grant has for brokers. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Let's jump into it.
You have a unique background in that you worked at a boutique brokerage, you've worked at one of the major companies, and then you've now started your own company. There's not a lot of people that have done all three of those.
You're right.
So with that in mind and having that collective wisdom, what would you say to a new broker that's considering getting into the industry? You mentioned mentorship's a big important part.
Yeah.
Brokerage is also going to be a pretty big important part. So how do you find both? How do you select that out?
I'm going to tell you what I tell all of them. Take the first job that you can get, because the hardest job in commercial real estate is always the first one. It's a business that is an apprenticeship business. And that's what's tough about commercial real estate is that you're dealing with a really large sale. I mean, in a select group of people. What I mean by that is, we'll use it. Anybody can buy a Rolls Royce. Anybody can buy a Gulfstream jet. There's not a lot of people that own and operate companies and lease commercial space. That's a very select few. It's also a very unique target, but that's ultimately the people who are going to be making the decision. On the landlord side, there's only a handful of asset managers and groups that own and operate space, and they keep getting more consolidated, especially on the industrial side. It's a relationship business, but it's also a business that takes at a high level. It takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of I guess intellectual capital that comes through practice. And that's why I say it's an apprenticeship business, because you can't learn it overnight and you can't learn it from a book. There's not a book that you can read. There's not a YouTube video that you can watch about how to do it. It just takes a long, long time, and you're dealing with huge numbers, because it's going to be the second or third line item on the company's P&L behind labor.
Mm-hmm. So you identify that, find the first job that you can, and there's so much power just in getting into the industry, into the system.
Yeah, because what the biggest concern everybody has is, are you going to make it, and are you determined to make it in this industry? I'll tell you. So one of my favorite types of hires are the people that went to work for another real estate company and it didn't work out. They got fired. They couldn't support themselves, something like that. And I'll tell you why. I like that because, everyone starts into this business and thinks, I did the same thing. Oh man, all I have to do is X, Y, and Z, and here's my plan, and I'm going to execute on this plan. And you gotta have a lot of humility in this business, because there's a lot of smart people in this business. There's a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time. And you have to plant a flag, dedicate yourself to this industry, and tell people, no matter what, I'm going to be successful in this business. I tell people that for the golfers out there, I tell people that my method and my model here is the Jack Nicklaus method. Swing as hard as you can at the ball, and I'll straighten it out. Because the reason that people don't make it oftentimes is they don't have it here. I can't help this. I can't do anything about that. But I can do a lot about everything else around there. If they're willing to work hard, give 110%, and do the things and take the steps that we're telling them to take, that's where, the mentorship is a two-way street. You can be a fabulous mentor, but if the mentee isn't willing to listen, it's not going to work out. And if they're willing to commit to that, that's great. The reason I say I like them when they haven't necessarily been successful somewhere else is because everything that was, that they thought could work, that they hadn't done, usually they're like me. They're like I was. I told you about how when I switched to the tenant rep side, how I was really struggling. I didn't know if I was going to make it. They're at the point where they say, I need somebody to help me and guide me and direct the trajectory of my career. I'm willing to do whatever it is. You tell me what to do, tell me to jump, and I'll ask how high. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. I like the Jack Nicklaus approach. You swing as hard as you can, and I'll try and straighten it out. Right. On the mentor side, how do you find a good mentor? Is it something as easy as just asking questions? Is it something where you're trying to interview the mentor as much as they're deciding whether they invest in you? Or how do you find that right fit?
So what I find is people love hard work. It's when you're given 110%, people take notice, and they naturally want to help that person. And that's why I say take the first job that you can get, give 110%, and then look for the people that you can align yourself with that are willing to help, because they're there. Here's why. There's a benefit to them. First of all, people genuinely like to help. That's just human nature. It's not like, you see somebody that's hurt, like take it. I have kids. Someone gets hurt on the playground. All the other kids run over there and say, "Are you okay?" It's not like the kid gets hurt on the playground. They go, "Good. That's great. See ya. I'm out of here." Human nature naturally is to help. And so typically those people are going to want to be help. They're going to want to help. They're going to be willing to help. The other thing is people appreciate work ethic and they appreciate hard work. What they don't appreciate is lack of effort. It's you don't hear people say, "Oh, he's a hard worker," and that's a pejorative phrase. You hear a lot of people are like, "Yeah, he's a slacker. Yeah, he doesn't come in a whole lot. He doesn't really dedicate himself to this. He has a lot of fun." That's going to be perceived with a pejorative connotation, not he works really hard and puts 110% into what he's doing. So if you take that first job, give 110% and start looking for those mentors. And they may be in your firm, they may be outside of your firm, but there's so many different ways to get involved with that. We're both part of the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. There's a couple ways that we do that. So number one, I was in charge of scholarship with another gentleman here in town. So I love people that want to get into commercial real estate and want to work hard and are working hard and have been working in that. That's why we have the scholarship. We gave out 8 scholarships, I think, last year, and I think 10 this year to people that want to get into commercial real estate. And some of these folks, they've gotten internships through this. And I know of people that are chomping at the bit to hire these people when they graduate. So, they made an effort. That's part of it. The other thing is, there are industry groups that you can research that are all about that. So, we have the Society of Commercial Realtors in Fort Worth. We have the North Texas Commercial Association of Realtors. There's all these other realtor groups that are out there. There's commercial, there's residential, there's all these different groups that you can be a part of. And those people are willing to be mentors. SIOR is another great one, in that it has the member associate program. If you're wanting to get involved in SIOR, reach out to someone else that has an SIOR designation and tell them that you would like to do that. And there is a program designed to help people ramp up in this business. So, ask for help, be present, show up, research what groups you can get involved in and what groups have these types of programs, because I can almost guarantee that all of them have that type of program. Most real estate companies have some sort of internship program. Talk to your teachers, talk to your professors, talk to, make sure you tell people that that's what you're interested in doing and make yourself known. And then I'll tell you the other thing. This business is all about prospecting. And what a lot of people that are going to be those mentors, that are the really good mentors that you want or evaluating, is how persistent are you? And so my old partner, I told you that he runs the tenant rep group for Cushman here in Dallas now. He, I guess, got a lead on another broker at Cushman & Wakefield, and this is when he was in school, and he called him, I think, 13 times. And after 13 times, the guy calls him back and he goes, "All right, you've called me 13 times. Why have you called me 13 times?" One of the best lines, I think, I'll have to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure his comment was, "Well, how come you didn't call me back 13 times?" Which I love that, like the boldness to say that. But he goes, "The only reason I'm calling you back is because you called me 13 times. I'm not hiring, but there's another guy that is. I'm going to introduce you to him, and I'm going to tell him that you called me 13 times. And that's why he got hired, was because he was persistent." Now, most people would call once, assume that these busy folks are going to call them back, and they don't. And so, I do give interviews to people that are persistent, and they call and they reach out and they tell me that they're interested in working here. I love that. I absolutely love that. And so, this business, if you're going to be successful in the commercial real estate space, you have to be respectful, but bold in a respectful manner, if that makes sense. You have to be persistent. You have to be tenacious, and you have to make sure that you're letting people know that you're willing to do that. I mean, I've hired people that, they don't have a spot on their team, but I have a spot, and they call me and they say, "Look, I can't hire this guy, but you should hire him," and vice versa. Sometimes I'm like, you know what, not a fit, but this guy would be great for this other person. Hey, so-and-so, talk to this guy. He'd be a great fit. That's why it's about creating that buzz and making sure that people know that you want to be in the industry. Because if you don't tell people that you want to be known in this industry, it's impossible to get hired in this industry. It's like, I talk about this all the time. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, who cares? No one's there to hear it. I could care less if it makes a sound.
That's such a great way of describing it. And I'll circle back to another point that I had here in a second, but it reminds me of a negotiating tactic on fees. And I've only used this a few times because it's fairly bold, but if someone's really grinding me on my fee, I'll say something to the effect, "How good am I going to be at negotiating your best interest if I can't even negotiate for my own?" And it's a bit of a bold
100%,
but there's some truth in there. And I completely agree with your point is, if a broker's not willing to be persistent with getting a job that will literally change their lives, how persistent and tenacious and on the ball will they be when they actually have to prospect for a new business? And one other thing that I would say, and I've recommended this to people as well. They're saying, "I've been trying to get an interview, I can't do it." And I said, "Well, what have you done besides just calling?" Like, send a FedEx and just say, "I saw your guys' company was in a magazine. I'm so dedicated to it. I put a picture of me I taped it right beside because I'd love to see myself working there. And it would be cheesy, maybe on the cusp of even being a bit cringy. But if you FedExed a letter to me and it said something, I saw your guys' name in the magazine, I put my picture in there, that guy's getting an interview from me. All day.
All day, every day.
Every day.
No doubt.
And like you said, it might not be a great fit for me, but I'd have to meet that guy. I'd have to meet someone that had the audacity to do that. And if they checked out and I just didn't have a fit, same as you, we have so many friends in this industry that I'm happy to send someone to one of my competitors because if a good person's in the industry, it might come back to me somewhere down the road. So I love that idea that 13 times, that's the most I've heard. That guy deserves a pat on the back for 13 times. But it's not a bad thing to even just like try something different. Like 13 times, that's pretty aggressive to do that without trying something else. Whereas like try and do anything, right? To send a box of cookies and have some cheesy note in there about there'll be more cookies the day of my interview or something to that. Like start being creative because everybody's doing that. Everybody can send in a resume. They can all call once or twice, but it's the guys that go above and beyond. And I just loved how you described that. I think that's such a great point. What do you say to someone that's considering getting into the business but doesn't know what they should be doing? You mentioned you started as an intern. Some brokerages might take a shot at somebody as being an assistant. It all depends on market conditions and who needs what at any given time. Where do you think the best spot is? And I know you've alluded to it by just get into the business, but some people might want to be more selective and identify all their options. Do you think that there's one way or the other that's best?
Oh, I think it's a little bit hard to be too selective because I do feel like people get going down the wrong path by not just, it's kind of like Walt Whitman. When you get to a fork in the road, or I guess that's Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
When you get to the fork in the road, take it. I took the path less traveled. That's Walt Whitman. But, when you get to the fork in the road, take it because the concern, I heard people say that they wanted to be analysts, and there was I had a bunch of people that told me that I shouldn't just jump straight into brokerage and I should be an analyst. And looking back, I really felt like that was poor advice because I wouldn't have had the opportunity to really just break into it and get into it. I think that your career is going to twist and turn the way that you do it. I mean, even in the tenant rep space, I used to do a lot of medical work, and then I got away from medical work, and then I was doing, almost exclusively data center work, and then I went back to the office side, and then I did a lot more industrial, and then, I think that people just naturally are going to find what that path is. But it's a lot easier once you get into the industry to then read and react, be like, you know what, I don't really want to be a leasing agent. I'd rather switch to the tenant rep side, or I don't want to be a tenant rep. I'd rather go to the asset management side or the development side or another piece of the business, because you'll have a little bit better understanding of what it actually is versus what it is from the outside. So I like the idea of researching it. I think that a lot of times stuff gets oversimplified and people don't quite understand what goes into it. I have heard on too many occasions, well, yeah, we don't hire interns. We don't hire. Somebody out there is hiring for an intern. What I found was I just didn't knock on enough doors to get hired for an internship the first time when I talked about that. Or I just went through the wrong door. And what I mean by that is I think it's a lot easier to knock on the front door, call the guy 13 times that's one of the big brokers you want to emulate versus going through the appropriate channels. I'll give you a great example. The Staubach company was just legendary in this market because I'm in Dallas and that's where they were based out of. I wanted to work at the Staubach company like everybody else in real estate, because it was just, I don't know, it was like a myth at that point in time. So I wasn't even going to school yet. I went to SMU here in Dallas, and the president of, or maybe he's North American president, something like that, of the Staubach company was giving a talk at SMU, and I happened to see that, and I was like, you got to remember, at this point in time, the only reason I wanted the internship, I didn't want it as a career. I just wanted the internship to make a little bit of money on the side. And if the doctor thing didn't work out, this was like the heydays of the hedge funds, and I was going to go work at a hedge fund like everybody else. None of that worked out. But I called the business school and I said, hey, I know she's giving a talk. Can I go to the talk? I'm not a student yet. I'm going to be a student the next week. And they said, sure, fine, whatever. What a weird question to ask. So this presentation was given. At the end, I walk up there and I introduce myself and I say, hi, I'm Grant Pruitt, and I'd really like an internship at the Staubach company. And it was, hey, call this number, which was the HR department. And I call the HR department and they have me in for an interview. And I have my interview in the break room, which didn't seem like a good place to be having a legitimate interview. And I sit down and they go, we don't hire anybody who doesn't have an MBA or isn't an MBA candidate right now. And I was like, I'm 18 years old. Like, okay. And come to find out, that may have not exactly been true, because I know a lot of people that interned for them when they were going to school, they just went through a different door. They were a little bit more bold. I didn't know that I needed to do that. So I went through the HR department because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And in hindsight, I would have just called up 4 or 5 of those brokers and kept calling them, been like, hey, I want to work for you. I want a job. I want an internship, because I probably would have gotten hired doing that.
Yeah, I love how you break the whole process down to just the nuts and bolts of this. This isn't a rocket science business, nor is it rocket science to get into it. It really does come down to that one identifiable trait, which I've noticed as well, is the person a go-getter? Are they willing to take the initiative to do this? And are they willing to keep going in the face of getting told no? And it could be 13 times. It could be 20 times. It could be 13 times by 13 different companies. But the person that's willing to keep doing it and do it consistently and keep doing that, and that's the hallmark. That's the foundation of what will make a successful broker. Because if they're willing to do it on a job, then chances are they're going to be willing to do it to earn an income. And then when they get a taste for it, they have a little bit of success and they realize that they can initiate business from scratch. That's the beautiful part about our business. The entrepreneur that you're talking about is that we're coming and we're creating business from absolutely nothing. And that one foundational skill of tenacity and wanting to win, like that's what I've always described it. Is how badly does someone want to win? What's their competitive streak? Will they play a game and they'll be like, well, we lost, on to the next one? Or will they say, I've got to get better. I want to win this game next time. I got to sharpen the old axe. That want to win at all costs. But I love how you broke that down so simply on that.
Yeah, and in you saying that, I love the athletics comparison, because there are some similarities. The other piece that I talked about was training. And, I have multiple coaches. I have a business coach that, works with CEOs and owners of businesses. I've done Massimo for years. I have a coach that helps me with my brokerage practice, and I've worked with him for years. I have different coaches, and, you hear a lot of people say, well, why do you do that? Well, first of all, it's an investment in yourself. Second of all, the reason I do it is it's take any great athlete. I mean, for Canada, take Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky had coaches. Why does Wayne Gretzky need a coach? He's the greatest hockey player of all time, right? Why does Wayne Gretzky need a coach? Why does Michael Jordan need a coach? Why does LeBron James need a coach? Why do any of these guys need a coach? Well, it's because they can't see themselves doing it. So somebody else has to sit there and say, hey, look, you know what, we need to maybe tweak this. The other thing is, it's because they're so competitive. Mm-hmm. They're always trying to get better. They always want to be better. Why do they practice so hard? That's what the books about those great athletes are about, is about how hard they worked and how hard they practiced. You don't ever hear any books about, they had never, ever touched a basketball or a hockey stick or skates, and they just went out and they were the best ever. No, they spent hours and hours and hours perfecting their craft, getting better, working on it. And that's how you have to treat the real estate business. Is you have to treat it as like those hockey players. I'm going to work at it. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to get better and better and better and better and better and better. And you know what? I train all the time. I have coaches to do that. I practice my deliveries. I practice what I'm going to say. I practice what I'm going to say internally. I practice what I'm going to say externally. It's all about working and trying to get better. And that's why the athletics piece is really important.
Yeah, I love how you described on the training side being very important as well, is that you got to get into the game. That's important. Whether it's picking up a basketball, picking up a hockey stick, using that same analogy, that's getting into the business. And that takes a certain amount of preparation and skill as well. But once you're in the game, do you want to just be a normal average player, or do you want to be the best? And if you want to be the best, there's so much capability, there's so much potential in this industry for people to go in and earn a fantastic living doing it, something that you love. But it is that training. So that's two parts that people need to pay attention to. You got to get in the game, and then you got to become the best at the game. And not everybody's cut out for that. That's just the reality. Is there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. They might just want to make one call and see if they can get an interview, and if they can't, they move on to a different business, perhaps even a different industry. But the people that are willing to go that extra mile, there's a wonderful career ahead of them.
Now, you bring up training, and I think that's probably one of the biggest shortfalls in our industry. Mm-hmm. And that everybody tells the story of, when I got into this business, they just gave me a phone and my business cards and said, go get it. And I laugh, and that, on the tenant rep side, I literally remember my first day. Fortunately, I'd been working on the leasing side, so I kind of knew or had an idea of what I thought I should do, which is why internships can be very valuable. But he was like, hey, we're so glad. Here's your desk, and here's your phone, and here are your business cards. And that was the last thing he said to me the whole day. And I was kind of like, man, okay. So I at least was thinking, what, I need to go out and start knocking on some doors and meeting some people that occupy space out there and see if I can help them. I think training is a real deficiency in our industry. That's one thing that is a firm I'm really, really big on. That's something that we work on internally. We have internal training. We have external people that come in and work with our teams and train. And we can't have enough training. And that really relates to our core values here. So one of our core values is coachable, and that's inclusive of myself. I mean, I have to be coachable and willing to be coached and trying to get better, because if you're not willing to be coached, you're never going to get better.
Can I just say coachable? One quick saying on there real quick?
What's that?
A quick thing on there. It's one of my fundamental beliefs, and I coach my kids' sports. Uncoachable kids become unemployable adults. And I think what you're saying is you need to be a coachable adult as well. So it doesn't even stop there. But I even say that to parents when I'm starting to coach their team. Uncoachable kids become unemployable adults. So
I am writing that down.
Yeah, that's stuck with. The first time that I heard that was before I had kids, and then I've lived that model. But I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to throw.
I love that. I'm gonna remember that. It's something I'm gonna have to make sure I tell my kids this evening when I get home. No, so coachable, works hard is another one of our core values. So working hard, coachable, tenacity, because it's different. integrity, that's one of the biggest things that people don't realize about this business that you have to have. SIOR, no surprise, because there's the integrity component to the designation. If you don't have integrity, you're just not going to last very long in this business. You're not going to be cut out for it. And then our fifth core value is wins. You got to win. And all of that comes down to the competitive nature and the athletic bent, if you will. But, not every team is created equal, and not every team is going to be the right fit for everybody. When you look at coaches, like people wanted to go work for Phil Jackson because he was such a great coach. Then you get some of these players that go become coaches and they're not the greatest coach. As an industry, we're deficient in coaching. We're deficient in growth opportunities. And that's something that we really try and promote internally here.
It's a perfect way to wrap up. I'm conscious of our time here.
Sure.
Well, and I really appreciate all the time you've given me already. I love how your core values summarize what we've already talked about. There's so much overlap in there that you could have said that at the beginning, and then we could have talked about that. Or that's a perfect summary, because that's everything that we're identifying on what you need to get into the business and also be successful in the business. So I think your core values are spot on. That's a great overview of it.
Well, thanks. We like to think so.
I did say at the beginning that I'd love to have you on again down the road to perhaps talk about what the first 3 months, perhaps the first year, perhaps even the first couple years of a new agent's career would look like. And I think we could easily spend some more time getting into that. But to another point you made, there isn't a whole lot of training out there for people, and a lot of people get into the business with their eyes closed. They don't know what to expect. So I think it'd be very valuable to have your insights into what people can expect going into it. So I'd love to tap you again in the fall here and
absolutely
do this again.
Happy to.
So for links for you, I'll leave a link to Whitebox and to your company, and also to your LinkedIn. Any other way for people to get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
You know what? Contact at whiteboxrealestate.com. It'll get to me. If you're looking for a job, send it there, and I can assure you we will find it.
And they might need to call a few times, but that's not a bad thing. If there's one takeaway that new people are listening to this, it's not a bad thing if you have to call more than once.
Listen, if you call, tell Shauna that I sent you.
There you go. Yeah, everybody's heard it. So no excuse if you're looking for a job in the 3.5 markets that you're already in, and potentially 7 markets in the next couple of years. So I look forward to following along on the journey as well, Grant, and we'll reach out and set up a time for the fall.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Grant. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Grant, for sharing all that insight. Just a quick note, I have 2 live shows remaining before I take a break for the summer. The one coming up this Tuesday, and the following Tuesday will be the last one. I've already got a lot of guests booked for the fall, so it'll be exciting to come back after the summer break. But look forward to having you join in on these 2 live ones if you want to check them out. Thanks.